Hello and welcome, collective. Another moon report, and this time we have a full moon in Libra. My name is Marlene. I am the modern mystic, and I have the great honor of being your resident moon goddess and bringing you moon reports twice a month. So if you're new around here and you're a new animal and you are just getting started, welcome, welcome. I love to see new faces around here. So if you're actually catching the replay of this, also leave me a comment on Mighty Network just to say hi and connect. And any questions that you guys ever have, if you're catching this later, always feel free to leave me a comment or send me a direct message, and we can talk astro and stars all the time. So let's get started. We have a full moon in Libra, and it's happening tomorrow at 12:34 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is in 16 degrees of Libra. And before we get into the full moon, last week we had a astro eventful week. So I just do want to mention that before we get started with this week, because we had two major astro movements happen, which was first Mars in Cancer, after having its long trajectory in Gemini for about 7 months, moved into the watery sign of Cancer. So not that it's Mars' favorite place to be, but much better energy is coming from Mars in the Cancer placement. So we may have felt a shift in areas of drive and ambition and of getting things moving instead of thinking and thinking and thinking and overthinking about things. Maybe finally there was some clarity around moving forward on certain projects or certain ideas or certain relationships or certain purchases, whatever it may be. And the other big astro movement that happened was Pluto into Aquarius. Now, Pluto is not going to be there a long time before it goes back into Capricorn, retrogrades back into Capricorn, but it is a significant shift that Pluto is finally in Aquarius, and Pluto is a slow moving planet, and we tend to feel those outer planets in like real existential ways. So, I think that last week could have been insightful for many of us, and, maybe a little erratic or busy, but maybe some really good ideas came through. And if, you know, that triggers anything for you, make sure that you write things down, and that any insights that come through any time in the trajectory of your life, like write them down, because I've noticed that ideas have a time span of their own and work on their own cycles and own schedules, but we don't want to lose the idea, right? And sometimes ideas and thoughts and inspiration takes a while to come into manifestation or fruition. But if we write them down, I don't know why that step always really works for me in terms of what I want to bring forth. Because we have to remember that Saturn is in Pisces. And just as a reminder, Saturn is like the father of time and what keeps us bound to this dimension, this third dimension. And, Pisces is beyond. We just got out of a Pisces season that was like crazy. It was like almost like we were kicked out into the astros. And then all of a sudden we were like brought back in Aries season, you know? And it's like, that's exactly how the zodiac is. It's like Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It is that beyond, it is that boundless place. And then boom, back into incarnation, back into the body with Aries. So this particular time from Pisces to Aries, I found it to be really wobbly and really wonky with the energy. And some of us, you know, kind of like stumbled into clarity or stumbled into some kind of like forward movement. And I just want to, if that's your experience, I just want to say that you're not alone and that, you know, we all went through some shadowy stuff to get here. So happy spring and welcome to Aries season, the middle of Aries season, and the Libra full moon, which is in opposition to the sun, of course, but the sun is conjunct Chiron during this full moon. So we're going to talk a little bit about that because the Aries Libra axis, right? When I mention that, what I what I mean is that Aries and Libra are across from each other in the zodiac. Okay. So they represent opposites. And whenever full moon or new moons happen, it highlights certain accesses. And in this case, it's the Libra Aries axis. And, you know, that polarity is very much about relationships and balance and equilibrium and justice. You know, you might have seen Libra represented as the scale of balance, right? The scales of justice. And Aries is very much a part of that, even though Aries is a very individualistic sign. And, you know, it's a lot, it has to do with a lot of self-preservation and a lot of, you know, embodying who we are, you know, in our truest, rawest sense. And in this access, it has Libra right across where the other is first presented into the zodiac, where we start relating and having relationships to the other. So what this moon is, one of the things that this moon is bringing up for us or trying to show us is where we are unbalanced on this axis, right? Where the needs of ourselves versus or meets the need of others. And where is it that we can meet at the middle of this axis, where we don't sacrifice ourselves, very Libra, right? People pleasing, sacrificing self for balance and for harmony, versus self-preserving so freaking much that you don't care, you know, and you'll ram like the animal related to Aries is the ram. And it's very much because it's just like when a ram goes, it's like it lowers its head and like points its horns and it's coming at you, you know? And it can feel like very tunnel vision when we deal with Aries. And what I really like want to mention here is because this full moon is highlighting relationships, you know, it's really through Libra things like diplomacy, right? And really achieving some sort of harmony and communication in relationships. And that is going to definitely lead to healing if both parties that are involved are on the same page. If one party is resisting, then it doesn't matter how much diplomacy you're exercising, you know, the other person is not invested. And this particular moon may find us in certain places where, you know, diplomacy is not working and the healing's happening, but it happens to be apart from the other person. And it could be showing up in many places, not only in intimate relationships, but in partnerships of all kinds, Depending on what house this is highlighting in your natal chart, meaning what area of your life is being affected by this moon, then it might be hitting us in completely different ways. But look for those themes. Look for those themes. And, I was reflecting before coming on here and, talking to my cards and asking what card is, appropriate for the collective. And I got the Four of Pentacles. And this card for me is about balance, definitely. Pentacles is earth. The number four is a very balanced number. But it's also about, holding on too tight to that balance and almost overexerting some sort of control. So as I reflected and asked myself, this, what I think is coming up for the collective is, how are we balancing power? How do we work with power in a way where it benefits you as much as it benefits the other person, where we can create a win-win situation about stepping into our powerful selves, where it doesn't just have to be radically about giving it all or taking everything. Like, where is it that we are in that spectrum of power? Do we look at power as something that comes into our lives and all of a sudden takes everything from us? Or do we look at power as something that we can harness ourselves for the purposes of healing, for the purposes of abundance, for the purposes of prosperity and everyone that's involved? So I don't know. I guess we're all in a different place when it comes to that. I can imagine. But I do know that if we reflect on that, there will be a certain foundation and a certain stability that comes from whatever we can create from that place. I guess it's about getting clear as to what our intentions are when we were talking about financial stability, when we're talking about financial freedom, Pluto in Aquarius. So what are we going to do with that power to not only benefit us, but the community around us and the world? So it's a whole new social responsibility with power that's being introduced. And I think specifically that spoke to this group. So I also want to bring up that there is a Mercury retrograde that is happening tomorrow, because back it up, Marlene, back it up. It's not happening tomorrow, but the pre-shadow starts tomorrow. And what I mean by pre-shadow, I mean that it is going to begin its trajectory where it's going to move back and forth in degrees while it's in its retrograde trajectory, right? So it's beginning pre-shadow. And, I sometimes talk to people where they're like, is the pre-shadow worse than the Mercury retrograde? Like, a lot of people struggle in the pre-shadow more. And when I heard some people talking about this particular Mercury retrograde, I got the sense that the pre-shadow of this particular Mercury retrograde that is happening beginning tomorrow, and it's happening in Taurus with the North Node, which gives us insight as to where we're going as a collective and what we're trying to achieve. So we're all looking at Taurus right now, right? This is going to be building themes specifically around our financial status and how we feel about that, and what sort of, I don't want to say plan so much as like order and structure do we have around that? Do we have both feet on the ground, earth, about our financial situation? So it's going to start showing you certain themes. And then it's going to go retrograde on the 21st of April. Okay. And when it does, it conjuncts the moon and Uranus. So there could be certain themes that had been coming up during the pre-shadow. This is why the pre-shadow this time is so important, that all of a sudden take a sudden change right when it goes retrograde because of that Uranus, and since it's the moon, there's a lot of emotion that could be attached to this change, a lot of subconscious thought around handling this kind of all of the sudden change. Uranus can feel very, fast and abrupt. So just kind of, keep these dates handy. And then it finally goes direct May 14th. And at that point, we have an opportunity to really sever habits and people and situations, relationships, jobs, like you name it, that shows up in your life as an addiction or a vice or something that you like, can't get around. And since it's like so important that those things really are brought up from the shadows, like if they do, like use the opportunity of this Mercury retrograde. This is why these retrogrades happen. So that we can sever all the South Node and Scorpio stuff, which is what points to what we're leaving behind as a collective, what is no longer working, what you cannot hide, where you cannot use power to manipulate and lie to people, where that's not going to be tolerated. And that expresses itself personally in our lives too, because we all have skeletons in the closet and we all have shit that we're cleaning up. And the more real we are with that, the more of an opportunity we have to heal and sever. And that's the real key word there, sever. Because that is an extra energetic step that sometimes we're not even aware that we have to do or that needs to be done. So personally, I've heard through a few astrologers that the end of the month, like the 31st post shadow, is when like really things will feel like they're moving forward. So it's time to slow down. I'm sure if Jamie sees this video, she's going to be like, why is she telling me to slow down again? Like, I hate when she tells me this. Jamie, I'm sorry. But it's time to slow down again because things may be coming up in terms of finances. And we all know that we have money stories. And that if we don't have money stories, we're going to be getting those phone calls from our friends that do, and we're going to be giving out a lot of advice, you know? So either way, it's going to be stressful because I think everyone has a story. And that story sometimes is even unconscious to us. And here's an opportunity to create a safe environment where we can let all of these skeletons in the closet come out and then actually move forward from a place where we can then achieve financial stability, whatever that means to you. For me personally, it means freedom. That's what drives me to my financial stability. I want to be free to do whatever I want at whatever time I want, whenever I want to do it. And whatever that means to me and my family specifically, the things I want to do with them and the time that I'm going to get back with that freedom. So be really clear. Take this time that we're going to have a whole, some of you have been around here since I started these moon reports, and we've been talking about Mercury retrograde for quite some time. And hasn't this whole Mercury retrograde thing expanded? Now we have to be like, okay, no, pre-shadow is this date, actual retrograde is this date, then direct is this date, then post-shadow, and it's like, I'm like, does it ever end? Like, how deep does this go, you know? But one thing that I have to say, and especially if you've been like following the moon for a while, I know you've probably seen things already in your life that have come into certain synchronicity, especially, for this kind of community where we're women, and the moon has this direct link with our cycles and our bodies. And the more that you follow the moon and the phases and what it means and how does it do it and create magic in your life with this planet, the more aligned you become with your body and the natural rhythm and order of your body. So with that being said, I want to invite you to use this full moon to create any kind of ritual or ceremony that is going to create more balance in your life. And you can like represent that in so many creative ways, but what is it that's coming up that needs a little tip in the scales that hasn't been working for you? And that's a real powerful illumination right now, because this really is, this polarity really is about that relationship. So I want to leave you with 2 questions, and specifically about money, that I want you to reflect on with what we just spoke about, creating balance and creating harmony. Yeah, full moon sex rituals. Go for it. If you have 2 responsible, conscious partners, and for those of you that this is your first time watching this video, there are people here on Zoom. You can also join us and come on in, and someone just put on the chat sex rituals. And yeah, this is the kind of moon that is about relationship. And if you have 2 on point partners that understand what the intention of this ritual is, or maybe you're just having it with yourself, that's possible too, a pleasure ritual, just keep your intentions clear, especially if you are practicing with a partner or multiple partners or whatever it is, so Taurus is about all things pleasure in moderation, because one of Taurus's shadows is overindulgence, right? So balance of power. I'll remind you about that. because that applies here too. So the questions that I have are you grounded around your financial plan? Are you grounded around your current, you can say, around your current financial plan? And if you had to, are you ready, or where are you ready to move forward? Because I'm going to invite you that, although this question says if you had to, I want to have you think about that right now would be like, put yourself in the situation or role play with yourself that right now would be the situation where you had to move forward. And what changes can you do right now, even if it's the smallest percentage, to bring more accessibility to where you want to be? Like, what stepping stone will get you more access to the next and the next and the next? And that could be a simple phone call, that could be an email, that could be a decision, that could be so many things. That could be a journal entry, right? But I do want for you to consider that the best action is the one taken today. So how can we think about this Mercury retrograde as an opportunity to look at all of these things, slow down, breathe into them, and then find the clarity and the right intentions to move forward, right? So yeah, you're taking action today, but it's planning your action. It's strategizing. It's researching your options. It's, you know, creating that kind of, you know, trust around you and your decisions when it comes to money and the stories that we have. How many money stories can you debunk from here to May 31st? So think about it. And I wish you, you know, peace and calm and, you know, clarity and balance during this full moon and beyond. As always, it's always great to connect with you. And like I was saying before, we do get together for these moon reports on Zoom. You can find the link on Mighty Networks in the event. And, you know, if you catch these after, you're invited to come on in and join us. We have a great questions and answer after these reports, and we get to share a little bit more about these themes. So you're invited. It's always an amazing experience to share with the collective. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Big hug, and I will see you in the new moon. If you ever have any questions, you can reach me on Mighty Networks, and you can also follow me on Instagram. Instagram at the Modern Mystique. That's the Modern MYSTIQUE. And you can also get in touch with me there. So I would love to hear from you. I always love to hear from other members of the collective. So reach out and say hello, and let's connect in other ways. Okay? Mwah. Big kiss. Ciao.